Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be talking about the final part of the Crusade, which of course is a reconstruction. I liked it. I did have to turn on the subtitles that kind of says what's going on, because if you don't, you can get lost in places, because there are some action sequences in this with not a lot of dialogue, and the telesnaps can leave you a bit going, So about halfway through, right after when Barbara gets rescued with the eldest daughter, I went back and turned on the subtitles so I could, I don't really like linking narration, but I did like the linking subtitles with the text, because that it explained what was going on. You really need that in part 4. It was interesting seeing the kind of Weasley character that was trying to get money from Ian at the beginning, by luring the ants onto him, which is a terrible, torturous thing to do to someone. He kind of reminds me of Benny from the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser, or the first Mummy with Brendan Fraser. He kind of has that Weasley character-like look and voice, and the way he acts, he kind of reminds me of Benny. Guess who's on the wrong side of the river? I love that movie. Although I do like that he kind of ends up helping at the end, getting the horses and the money. He kind of ends up being I won't say a good guy, but I do like the fact he ends up helping at the end. It's really hard for me to tell how Ian gets the upper hand there. I haven't turned on the subtitles yet, so I know the guy's checking his boots. Apparently there's a scuffle, and somehow Ian's gotten free. Wasn't quite sure how that happened, but I got that was what happened. It was nice seeing Richard figure out that the doctor wasn't responsible for informing his sister what had happened. Is Jean Marsh in this one? I don't remember if Jean Marsh is actually in part 4. Was she just in 2 and 3? I can't remember if Jean Marsh is actually in part 4. I like that we don't really get the resolution between the historical events happening here. When the doctor leaves, everything is still going on. He still wants his sister to marry the Egyptian brother. She still doesn't want to. So there's still that potential conflict. It very much is this slice of life thing. I love these pure historicals. The doctor isn't there to save the day like Superman. He's just there and trying to get everyone away from there, because he knows you're not supposed to interrupt the flow of history. History has to remain the way it's supposed to. So they're just trying to get out, and they do. And so we don't actually see how historical events from what is, I believe, technically the first Crusade, end. It's really clever in that it would get a child, because it's still a children's show at the time, curious enough that they might go look themselves, look in a history book, read about these historical characters, find out how the conflict resolved, so that you have children eager to go out and read and study history and learn. It could have, piqued their interest enough that they go out on their own to find out the ending of the story. And that's a fascinating idea. And I wish Doctor Who would do this more, instead of the doctor, I'm the doctor and I'm going to save all 6 million lives on the planet below. You got a problem with that? Well, yes, actually, sometimes I do. I don't want the doctor, I'm the doctor, I'm the hero. Don't you see this giant S painted on my chest? I kind of like that, he's just someone who travels around seeing the universe with companions, and he's just trying to get out of events here. I really enjoyed that. Interesting thing is, it got me thinking about the Caves of Androzani, because the Caves of Androzani is kind of like that. Not much of that story would be different if the doctor had never showed up there. It really is just a story where the doctor finds himself there in a situation and he needs to get out. And a lot of the pure historicals are like that. The doctor's there, stuff happens, they get caught up in events, and they just need to get out. It's almost like the Caves of Androzani is a pure historical, just not an Earth historical. It's not part of our history, what we consider historical. It is it's an Androzani historical. So maybe 100 years, 200 years in the future, this is something they talk about as a big historical event, the same way we talk about World War II or, the Crusades or, stuff like that. that could be a historical moment for them. So the Caves of Androzani could be a historical, just not to us. It could be for, the people on Androzani Major. That fascinates me, that idea that pure historicals work a lot of times in the same way that Caves do, because Caves is held in such high regards, rightfully so. It's Bob Holmes. Now, I don't think it's the best classic Who Doctor story ever, but it is a phenomenally good story. Bob Holmes. And so that whole thing of, the Doctor, there's no good people here. The Doctor just needs to get out. He's not trying to say everything. He's trying to get out. Now, in some of the historicals, there still are some good people. But the Doctor, again, he's not trying necessarily to save the day. He's just gotten caught up in events and trying to get out. So the parallel between some of these stories like the Aztecs and the Reign of Terror and the Crusade, between what's going on there and what happens in Caves, and it's a connection I just made watching Crusade, fascinates me. Because Caves is held in such high regard, whereas a lot of people don't hold pure historicals in high regard, even at the time. And that fascinates me. I don't know what that noise was. That fascinates me. But I really enjoyed this story as a whole. Again, I wish episode 4 existed. I enjoy a lot of the dialogue in it, and with the subtitles on, it's easy to tell, much easier to tell what's going on. I really wish we could have seen that fight scene when Barbara gets rescued, like when the guy shows up to rescue his eldest daughter and stabs the guy with the scar in the back, and then Ian shows up. I would love to have actually seen that, because it looks like it would have been an impressive scene. And I love at the end when the Doctor gets accused of being a traitor and Ian shows up. It's like, yes, he is. I'm the one that's here to execute him. I like the fact that the other knight, the Earl of Lancaster, whatever, even though he's, I won't say a bad guy, even though he's against what the king is doing, he still has that noble code of honor, well, your grievance against him is greater than mine, so you can execute him. And the other's like, well, can I have one final request, and the knight's like, granted. Well, I want to see the city one last time. Get granted. So he still has this code of honor. So it's not that he's a bad guy. There's not really a lot of mustache twirling villains in this. The guy with the scar kind of is a two-dimensional villain. But not a lot of that. A lot of these characters still have that code of honor that is perhaps stereotypically given of that time with knights and stuff like that. And I like that. I like that there's more depth to the characters than that. And he's still a little, like the Earl of Lancaster, still kind of a two-dimensional character, but I like that he still has that stereotypical code of honor that I like. Yeah, I enjoy the stuff that's going on in this. I like the whole story. Episode 3, of course, is my favorite. I talked about that in my episode 3 review. That episode really blew me away. Episode 1, I guess just being the first episode, it takes a little bit to get into it. But once I figured out what was going on, something fell over somewhere. Once I figured out what was going on, I did really enjoy it. Episode 2, again, it was a reconstruction, but I enjoyed it. It got a little tricky at the end because, again, I didn't have the subtitles on. And there was a lot of just, Barbara running, trying to get away. So I didn't quite understand what was happening there. Episode 3 was phenomenal. And again, at the beginning of episode 4, since I didn't have the subtitles turned on yet, that bit at the beginning when Barbara somehow gets away, I don't quite, the telesnaps, it's really hard to tell that. So if you watch it with the subtitles on, I would recommend for the reconstructed episodes. They help a lot. But I like that. I really am finding out I tend to like pure historicals. Like, the Aztecs to me is overrated. Good, but overrated. The Reign of Terror, I love the Reign of Terror. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones I've seen from the time. The novelization of the Mythmakers I really enjoyed. I feel like there's another one in season 2 I'm forgetting. The Romans. The Romans is good once you realize the Romans is a comedy. And not to be taken too seriously. Once you get that, in your head that it's a comedy, you can really enjoy it. The guy playing Nero is phenomenal. I love his portrayal of Nero. I think it's funny while still getting his kind of sadistic side and the childish nature of Nero down. At least, the kind of stereotypical childish nature of him we have. He pulls that off really well in that. And then I really enjoyed the Crusade. Again, it has such a good cast. Everybody's doing a good job in it. And our main cast is doing such a good job in it. Hartnell really has some standout moments in it. I really wish it completely existed, but I am grateful that we at least have half of it, especially episode 3. It's so phenomenal. I really enjoyed the Crusade. This is my first time watching it, and I really liked it. More and more, I'm understanding why Hartnell is held in such high regard by so many people, why he's so high on their list. It's not just the fact he's the first. He's so good in the role. You can tell that Hartnell loves playing this character and that he puts so much into this character. And he's really developed from his early stories in season 1 to being a much more fully rounded, caring character. I love his relationship with Vicky. I mean, I like his relationship with Ian and Barbara as well, but he has this very grandfatherly connection with Vicky. I tend to love when William Hartnell and Maureen O'Brien have scenes together in pretty much any of their stories I've seen. They have a really good chemistry, I think. The characters definitely have a very strong bond. I love the dialogue they have together. And they perform really well together on screen. Season 2 is it's so good. It's so good. I think season 2, I've heard the arguments that it's Hartnell's strongest season. I can see why. It has so many good stories. I mean, the only real dud I've seen is The Web Planet. And that's more just, the budget's not there. I mean, it's an ambitious story. It really is. And I will applaud the ambition behind it all day long. The story itself is written pretty well. It's, the budget just can't, even though I actually think The Web Planet does pull off some things pretty well budget-wise, actually. I love the set. I love the set to The Web Planet. It just has some decisions it makes that really drags it down. But it's the only one I find hard going. I really I love Planet of Giants. I really liked Dalek Invasion of Earth. I really liked The Rescue. I really enjoyed The Romans. And I love The Time Meddler. So it's such a strong season. The only ones I have left to watch are Space Museum and The Chase. And I've heard Space Museum has a really good first episode, and then it just kind of... And The Chase, some people seem to love it, some people seem to hate it. So it's either a love or hate story, apparently. And I heard apparently it's a bit comedic and it kind of gets remade in the master plan later. So we're going to find out on those. So I want to know what you think of The Crusade. I very much enjoyed it. Strong script, David Whittaker, so it's not surprising. Strong performances. Comment down below and let me know your thoughts on it. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do and want to contribute to what I do. That does help me pay the bills. I would appreciate you checking that out. So several different tiers to pick from. I want to thank some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and Colin Coney and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their continued support as I do the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review. And I also have a link to my Amazon wish list, which I do update regularly as well. Most importantly, though, as always, thank you for watching.